Mark and I started collaborating the minute he came out of the womb. I mean, it started with just putting on little plays and doing magic shows. You know, making movies was just an extension of that. Hi, my name is Jay Duplass, and this is the timeline of my career.
Hi, you've reached John Ashford. This is 416-9754. I'm sorry I've missed your call.
This is John is a 7-minute, $3 short film that is the first non-piece of shit art that I have ever made in my life, and it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2003. I wanted to be the Coen brothers. I failed miserably at doing that, and it turns out that what I had to offer was something very opposite in style and in substance. I failed a lot before I even got close to making something good. I was 29 years old, about to turn 30, and I was really ready to throw in the towel on filmmaking. And all my friends were buying houses and having kids, and I was repeatedly making shitty films. This film was simply about a guy trying to perfect the personal greeting of his answering machine, failing to do so and having a nervous breakdown, which was something that had happened to me the week before. So it was true to life. I was the only crew person, my brother was the actor, and it was the first time I shot something where I knew that something real was happening in front of the camera. It was the first moment where I was deeply entertained by what was going on. I wasn't worried about whether other people would like it. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't think it would necessarily be successful, but I knew we had captured something new and something different had happened. And we ended up getting it into Sundance, and everything changed. We started building very slowly from that one tiny little $3 kernel.
It's John Ashford.
Remember the Puffy chair when we were little?
Yeah.
I found a replica of it on eBay, and I bought it from this dude, and Emily and I are driving in the van to pick it up.
We were terrified of making a feature because we had failed at it, and it wasn't until Trevor Groth, the head programmer of Sundance at the time, said, "Hey guys, it's time to move on to feature filmmaking." But we were so terrified that our philosophy simply was, well, we suck at making features, we know how to make good short films, let's make a road trip movie, because that's essentially just 14 or 15 short films in a row. And honestly, we just told the story that we felt like we were in a unique position to offer, which was the story of being in your mid to late 20s, being in long-term relationships, and trying to figure out whether you should marry this person or break up with them immediately, because that's what it felt like at the time. We were staying in our lane in a major way. Audience members had come up to us, and from the very beginning with This Is John, that turning point in our career, people came up to us in screenings and they would say, "Oh my God, it was like you put a microphone in my apartment when I broke up with my boyfriend last week." That was probably the best compliment I ever could have imagined getting, because I know this now in retrospect, but back then what we were doing is, it was the first time that we were taking these private conversations, these like really personal conversations about the really embarrassing shit we were doing and how we were operating in our relationships. It wasn't really until we started divulging these private conversations on film that our movies started having success, and that people started feeling that what we were saying or transmitting was original.
Hey guys. Whoa!
When anything can happen in a room, the audience feels that. I think they subconsciously pick up on the fact that this isn't controlled in this moment, and the actors feel that. We did throw Jonah Hill and John C. Reilly and Marissa Tomei and Catherine Keener into wildly uncontrolled scenarios at times, and luckily these were the kinds of people who were thrilled by it, and they felt emboldened by the story, and they knew enough about where the story was going. We didn't know if famous movie stars were gonna be okay with it. I will say that the most surprising thing that happened on that set was delivered by Jonah Hill, when the first time that Marissa, Jonah, and John were at a dinner table, we were having a dinner, and Jonah was ribbing John and kind of asking him questions about his intentions, and John was trying to feel out what Jonah's character was like. And They were joking, and Jonah slipped in this line, "Don't fuck my mom."
Seriously, don't fuck my mom. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking around. Sorry, no.
Hi.
No,
Which, if you had written that in a script, no one would ever, it would feel too on the nose, you know? It would feel like a big, broad comedy. But the way that Jonah slipped it in, it was at the tail end of a big laugh. John Riley's face when he said that, I will never, ever forget it. It is a face that could never have been made if it had been scripted and he was expecting that line. It's just one of those incredible happy accidents that you can only have if you have an open universe that they can play in.
I can't help but wonder about my fate. About my destiny.
I'm gonna give away a secret here, but Mark came upon this concept that, like in Die Hard, you'd have an action sequence and then you'd go set up the whole film, and then, you know, the action sequence was a promise of what was to come. And so we started thinking about our films that way in terms of trying to find succinct but honest ways of opening our films. We really wanted to find a way to transmit to the audience that this guy was an explorer and a wanderer and a philosopher. But all he does is sit at home in his mom's basement and smoke weed and watch movies, right? So it's like, how are you going to reveal this without boring the hell out of everybody? So we had him tell this very intricate New Age thesis on signs. And of course, we reveal at the end that he's on the toilet. And that's the button that we needed. And man, I remember the first take that Jason did it. I was like, we could walk away right here on the first take. It was so funny. I don't think that Jason would have been that much on our radar just because he was mostly a TV person back in those days, you know? Once we met him, it was one of those feelings where we just knew that he was this magical creature, and I just wanted to see him do all these things, you know? And that's something that I've thought about a lot. You know, we're not playing for laughs. We wanted to play for drama, and we just wanted to be as incidentally funny as possible.
One of the shutters on the pantry is broken, and I need you to fix it.
You know, I'm kind of busy right now, so
All
maybe...
I want for my birthday is for you to get your ass off that couch, and you get on the bus, and you go to the Home Depot.
Couch.
You come home, you fix the shutter before I get home, or you're gonna find someplace else to live.
Something's not right. Are you having second thoughts about Haiti?
What? No, get off.
Duncan's hugs never lie.
Okay, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna get a drink. Whatever, see ya.
Shirley Temple with vodka, right? I would say the Mindy Project is my first legit acting gig. We actually called a meeting with Mindy Kaling to try to cast her in a film that we wanted to make with her, and she said no to that. And then 2 weeks later, she said, I'd like you to play the villains in my television show. I had only ever regarded myself as a behind the camera person. I think when you're coming up, acting is for extroverts and loud people, and people who want a lot of attention, and I felt like I was the opposite of all of that. Well, my brother has always said that being a good writer-director is like being a good mom or dad and raising a child to fruition and, you know, shepherding them throughout life until you die. That's what being a really good filmmaker is all about. And being an actor is like being the drunk uncle who shows up at Christmas with Oreos and wins the day and leaves after 2 hours. Writing and directing is a nightmare. You have to hold the whole universe on your shoulders. There's a reason why directors go insane after 20 years of directing. I think it's almost too much for one person to do and maintain their sanity. So I feel really lucky that I accidentally discovered acting in a way I think it kind of saved me by creating a little space from feeling like I had to write and direct something to just be a part of the industry. No one really invites you to write or direct something. You just kind of like have to heave it on people.
Like, when a guy's having sex with a girl, he's like, always in the back of his mind, he's like, I might get this girl pregnant, not good. But like with you, it's like not possible. So I don't know, you could just relax.
I met Joey Soloway, and they were casting their first television show called Transparent, and Joey said, I have the whole family except for the son, and I'm having a really hard time. And that's what directors do, is we help each other cast those roles. And I went through it. She said, I'm looking for a mid to late 30s, wildly charismatic, wildly insecure Jewish man. And I was like, I know all of them. They're all my friends. And she said, no, there's something really specific that I'm looking for, and I kind of don't even know what it is. And we hung out all night and really got along well. And then she stopped me in the middle of the conversation, and she said, it's you. It's you. You're him. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, you're Josh Pfefferman. You're going to play him. You have to realize that I was just saying yes to what I thought was a web show. At that time, that's what we were calling Transparent. We were calling it a little web show that was gonna appear on Amazon.com, which wasn't a network yet. It was the place where you bought your toilet paper. That's what Amazon.com was to us at the time. And so I said, why not? I'll just be on a web show. And and what was cool is they would air the pilot, whether it got picked up or not. I was like, this definitely isn't getting picked up. I mean, like nothing gets picked up. We shot the pilot, and 6 months later, I was at the Golden Globes, and we won a Golden Globe for the web show called Transparent. And I was sitting next to Jeff Bezos. People think life is short, but life is long. But
I'm a woman. Talking about my dying eggs.
Check. I did not know of what you spoke.
Apologize. I should have been clearer.
Of course, the show was also, a lightning rod for a moment in time where I think it helped open everyone's mind about the fluidity of gender and trans rights and just human rights in general, because there's very few people who are stripped of their rights more than trans people. So it was just a very vulnerable and special time, and I feel so lucky that I was able to sort of just slide in sideways to such a special project at such a special time.
It's like a positive.
That's what you go to? That's the positive?
It's a positive. I'm just trying to say, it's like, I don't see why it would ever be a negative for anybody. It's like, great. I mean...
Let me just enjoy this right now.
I'm just trying to help. This is tough love time. Give me the fucking donuts.
You want the donuts?
Yeah, I want the donuts.
All right. You can have them.
Thank you.
Togetherness was originally a show called Alexander the Great, which I was going to write for my best friend Steve Zissis, who is one of the great talents of our generation, in my opinion, and I really just wanted to make the show so that I could show the world what a great and amazing and funny and enlightening human being he is. So originally it was going to be a show that Steve and I acted in, and we were going to make a little web show. Another, yet again, little web show that turned into a hell of a lot more. And when I wrote the pilot, I sent it around to a few of my friends and to my brother, and everyone came back and they said, this isn't a little web show. You need to do yourself a favor and just send it to HBO. They said they loved it. What would you like to do? And I said, I'd love to just make something small and throw it up there. And they said, no, we want something big. In that process, I think I really learned what the difference is between feature filmmaking and television filmmaking. It was a rough transition, but I think I cracked the code, for me at least, on what a television show looks like in my language. And so we made a TV show for HBO starring, my brother and my best friend, and two of the greatest actresses of all time, Melanie Lynskey and Amanda Peet.
You just did that right to my face.
Right in the face.
All right.
Those are my donuts!
Are you okay? What happened? Okay, stop. What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop. Stop. What are you doing?
I love you.
Outside In was a film that was a concept that was brought to me by the late, great Lynn Shelton, who basically saw Transparent and said, you're one of my favorite actors now. And she said very specifically, I remember it clear as day where I was standing when she said it. And she said, I would like to see you come out of prison and pursue relentlessly your high school teacher who has been an advocate for you the entire time that you've been there. She said that, and I said yes. period, end of story. We knew we were going to make that movie. Lynn is a lot like the great directors I've worked with in that she has a very light touch, doesn't direct the first take, and hires actors that she believes in and trusts, and remained in a state of reception, I would say. And it just makes you feel really empowered and in charge of who you are as a character, and you find yourself in a state of discovery at all times, and there's really nothing more special than that.
All right.
Let's see it.
Do I look as good as I feel? All right.
Yeah?
So I was thinking, you know, like, you gotta be a piece of shit to bring a kid into the world right now. I mean, like, you gotta be an idiot. Pink Wall is a movie that Tom Cullen wrote and directed for essentially himself and Tatiana Maslany, his girlfriend at the time. Tom and Tatiana were coming to the end of their relationship, and the movie was about their impending breakup, which eventually did happen. And it took me a while to figure out what the hell was happening, but I started to realize along the way that I was essentially playing Tom in this film. It was a fully improvised film that, you know, came from an outline that we shot in probably 10 or 11 days in Wales. It was a pretty profound experience to just be on the inside of a very loving relationship, two people who were trying to figure out a way how to consciously uncouple in some way, and to be a part of that was very surreal. Also, to be directed to make out with the girlfriend of the guy who's directing you that you are playing is also a surreal experience. But I loved it so much, and I love that film so much. I know this can't replace what was lost. I'm here to say that I'm sorry.
I wanted to spend every moment I had left with Rachel and Carl. But then Congress came after our health care.
Not Going Quietly was brought to us by Bradley Whitford, who is essentially my brother-in-law because he married my television sister, Amy Landecker, and we're good buds. You know, I had known quite a bit about Adi Barkan through his, you know, political activism and through social media, but, you know, Bradley came to us and told us that Trump's new healthcare measures were essentially going to create a death sentence for Adi. And it was such an electric statement and reality, because I think healthcare and politics is theoretical, but in Adi's case, it was this new policy that Trump has created is going to kill me because I will not be able to get the healthcare to stay alive. And it was so palpable, and Adi was also so inspired and so, I think we all know in the back of our minds that the worst thing that can happen can sometimes be the best thing. You just don't know how it's really gonna play out. And in Adi's case, his ALS, you know, just took his activism to the highest level. It just got him indoors. It got him all over the internet. It got him on national news. You know, it got people talking about him directly in the election cycle. But what really made us feel like we were the right people to produce the film is that it was also about his personal life and what it is that he had to reckon with and how he was going to, you know, create his new life and his family. And yeah, he's just a unstoppable being, and ALS is just another obstacle in the road to what he will accomplish.
I am willing to give my last breath to save our democracy.
It has TBD for the next 8 weeks. The kids are asking her what they're, you know, actually going to study.
They're gonna study death and some taxes.
Modernism.
I said that.
Hey.
Amanda Peet, when she walked in the room to audition for Togetherness, gave probably the most electric, surprising, hilarious, and terrifying auditions I've ever witnessed. Her performance in Togetherness was breakthrough for her, and when the show ended a little early, she and I knew that we we had unfinished business. So we spent years working on ideas together, you know, just talking and brewing things up. And, you know, eventually when she came upon this concept of the chair, I knew that I was going to do it. I never dreamed that Bill Dobson would be as fun or as complicated as she ended up writing him. It was better than I ever thought it could be. But it definitely was a evolutionary process as opposed to, oh yes, I will or I won't play this character. There was no doubt about it. I was gonna be this guy. Sandra Oh is the sharpest knife in the drawer. There's no doubt about it. I've probably learned more from her as an actor than I have from anybody else. She's incredibly prepared and rigorous about what she's doing, why she's doing it, and she doesn't fuck around or waste any time, but she's also a goddamn pleasure and real fun to be with. You know, her level of rigor, preparedness, and professionalism was such a guiding force and honestly necessary when we were making art during peak COVID. It was a very intimate experience just because the rest of the world was incredibly not intimate, you know? And it felt like when you took your mask off, you were getting naked. It really felt shocking, and it made everything so much more personal. And I think we all felt really lucky to be making art after a year of dormancy, even though we all knew fully well that we were risking our lives to make a fucking TV show, which sounds insane that it's not hyperbole to say that. Your unique contribution to the world is something not only that's difficult to discover, but I think it's not yours to decide. It is for the audience to decide. They will tell you when you have arrived at what is new and special and what they need to receive, because ultimately filmmaking is a communication between you and an audience that is sometimes 2 to 3 years away. And so listening to them and allowing yourself the opportunity to arrive at that union is something that I don't hear anybody talking about, and I now know in retrospect that it's the only thing.